Okay, so my name is Rubén Mancheno, and we're going to talk about cultural colonialism and new languages of power, scientific progress in 19th century in Ecuador. This is a text written by Gilles Fitzel in the year 1996. Regarding the Europeans and the natural sciences in the 19th century in Ecuador, we can say that the text actually says that Europeans traveled to Ecuador after the Spanish independence in the 1809, trying to make contributions to the natural sciences of the locals. They were interested in recording the social world which they witnessed when they traveled. They later will entertain the middle class of Europeans by telling them in these travel agencies about their travels and their experiences that they went through South America or other journeys. The main argument that Fitzel proposes is to discuss the fact that if the if the fact that the Europeans came to Ecuador with their progressive ideas and scientific practices will introduce new languages which altered the way in which Ecuadorians understood and organized their lives. Global expansion in industrial production and international trade. That's the time in which the Europeans came to Ecuador. They tried to classify, measure, and organize their natural space. Regarding natural science and physical space, the production and organization of physical space was a crucial problem in the 19th century in Ecuador. The cause of uh, the consequence of the independence resulted in new conceptions of territory, ideas concerning the necessity of modernization and progress, demand for new roads, railways, postal services, sewage services, lighting modern scientific institutions were what people were expecting in this period of time, and what Europeans were proposing to the locals. The benefits of progress were assumed by the most of the travelers. Even the president of Ecuador at that time brings some Europeans, and he creates a polytechnic college to teach the practical applications of scientific methods, such as road and bridge constructions, a meteorological observatory, and even a botanical garden. In terms of politics and knowledge, the problem of cultural power needs to be addressed at two levels. The first level focuses on a specific local history by asking who has the symbolic power, who creates and who defines recognized visions of that social world, and to what ends. The second follows up on these questions about the local control and distribution of knowledge to connect local histories in wider historical relationships of cultural, social, and political economic processes. So both European travelers and highland Ecuadorians were complex and internally differentiated collectivities, endowed with their own histories. So Fitzel proposes that this process of cultural colonialism involves conflicting interests and divisions both within and between these collectivities. This test of successful cultural colonialism depends on the extent to which people accepted the European science and acted on it in practice. So, regarding European culture in the Ecuadorian elite, until the 1870s, the only people that gave support to the Europeans were the ones that were educated in Europe, the people of the landowning class, and the ones that had class interests. The European travelers were accepted after colonial independence, as I said before. They gained respect because of influential involvement in government affairs, powerful social standing of being landowners. Uh, However, they worked very hard and they ensured a considerable comfort while they stayed in Quito. European activities involve exploring, surveying, and recording the natural environment. Local people interpret these activities strategies like saying they were treasure seeking, spying, planning against local government officials. Basically, because of ignorance, they didn't know how to recognize the activities that actually they were performing, so they confused them with these activities that I said previously. Europeans elaborated geographical maps and classifications, which were legitimated by Ecuadorian intellectuals later. The European science and the University of Quito, science as a form of disciplinary knowledge, was first introduced by Jesuit scholars in the 18th century, followed by the Europeans. In the 18th century, the only science available in education was medicine. Jose Felix Valdivieso had a large library, and the most of his books were on theology. Another important character of this time is in this aspect is William Jameson, who was employed by the Botanical Society of London to collect plant specimens. He decided to stay permanently in Ecuador. He was an important contact for the Byzantine scientist. William Jameson also and the French engineer Sebastian Weiss became close friends of Gabriel Garcia Moreno, and the three of them became very interested in the study of these volcanoes and its geographical formations. Regarding his Garcia Moreno and his state discipline, he became president of Ecuador in the year 1861. He was a Roman Catholic and he was educated in Paris. He wanted to make Ecuador the protectorate of France. In 1 year, the same year that he became president, he attended to redefine the territory of Ecuador, and he regulated the administration of the common interests of the people in the country divided by provinces. In his period of government, there were schools, public works, markets, cemeteries, water sources, and public health. He was very much concerned about poverty, the immoral conduct, drunkenness, and prostitution. In his relationship with the Church, he agreed that it was necessary to work with the Roman Catholic Church in order to bring spirit of institution from Europe. He wanted to improve the political tide in Europe through the Church, and this improvement was held by the European Jesuits and nuns. European Protestants and the Catholic Church. So the local clergy taught almost all the population to consider that as foreigners as detestable heretics, especially the dissidents. This attitude partially explains that the European travelers' minimal connections with the church people before the 1870s. Europeans describe often as primarily as free thinkers, apparently espousing no particular religious faith. Protestantism didn't become an issue in Ecuador until the 19th century, when Europeans arrived from England, Germany, and France. After the death of this Colonel Neil in the city of Quito, clergy all over the country entered into a debate announcing that Protestant funerals were forbidden by the Constitution and that the ceremonies of false religions will disturb the conscience of the Catholics. And as Fitz says, and I quote, "The conflict over Protestant burials took on such heightened symbolic importance because the Protestants in question were also extremely influential diplomatic representatives, and failure to treat them with due respect could threaten international relations, a matter which was clearly of greater concern to the Ecuadorian government than to the Catholic Church." the state institution of scientific progress. The University of Quito was closed in the year 1869 and for bad teaching. In 1 year later, the university was opened again with more careers. Some of them were medicine and the engineering school, faculties such as botany, zoology, geology, chemistry, biology, and physics. Physics and engineering were very important careers for the beginning of the modern progress in the city and mostly in the country. French doctors came to Ecuador in order to teach medicine. They specifically they taught surgery, anatomy, and that type of subjects. Jesuits came to help in the Escuela Politécnica in studies about engineering, and an important character here is Theodor Wolff, who came from Germany to Quito in the same year. He taught many things and later became a priest. He made an Ecuador map and later a book. He helped in the installation and of the water system and the public lighting in the cities of Ecuador. Resistance to foreigners and scientific discipline. Gabriel Garcia Moreno was murdered in 1875. The tyrannical tyrannical presidency was the consequence of this murder. He made bad things to happen, such as the closure of this Escuela Politécnica. He had problems with the Jesuit church. In the same year, Guayaquil demonstrated a clear rejection to the Jesuits, and also the capital. They attacked the Jesuits until they offered to leave voluntarily. Regarding the volcanic eruption, this terrible event occurred in June 26th of the year, 2 years later, with this volcanic eruption refers to the eruption of the volcán Cotopaxi. This event caused damage in the areas of La Tacunga and Quito. The legitimacy of natural science was intrinsically involved in the ideological struggle which followed the volcanic eruption in this year. The eruption made that was we can say, as Fitz say, is the last series of events which brought the president at that time, which was President Ventimiglia, and the members of the church into an outright and public contest for common sense legitimation by the local populace. The issue contested was whether the church or the state had the authority to determine the interpretation of these events of the eruption. In the district of La Tacunga, at least 300 lives were lost. The carriageway to Quito was destroyed. 19 mills, a textile factory, and around 50 houses. In the location of Mulalo to the north, 102 people were killed. 12 haciendas were severely damaged or destroyed, and most of the cattle and pastures were lost. This event causes tension and struggles between both entities, between government and the church. And throughout the dramatic escalation of this crisis, government and church officials accused each other of attacking their respective authority whilst claiming respect in principle for the other's function. For example, the government claimed to respect the church but accused it of political activity outside its mission, and the church claimed to respect the government role in jurisprudence but accused it of departing from church doctrine. interpretations. So this El Comercio wrote that the volcanic eruption was a conspiracy against liberal government because of this fighting between the church and the government entity. Rumors said that in Quito, Cotopaxi eruption was caused by God anger by the church, and Theodore Wolff was the only one that maintained a scientific attitude to the Cotopaxi event. Regarding natural science and physical space, the production and organization of physical space was a crucial problem in the 19th century in Ecuador. The cause of uh, the consequence of the independence resulted in new conceptions of territory, ideas concerning the necessity of modernization and progress, demand for new roads, railways, postal services, sewage services, lighting modern scientific institutions were what people were expecting in this period of time, and what Europeans were proposing to the locals. The benefits of progress were assumed by the most of the travelers. Even the president of Ecuador at that time brings some Europeans, and he creates a polytechnic college to teach the practical applications of scientific methods, such as road and bridge constructions, a meteorological observatory, and even a botanical garden.